topics in HR.
Whether it's passive talent or it's active talent.
That's a soft skill that really gets undersold in the hiring process.
How to manage in the virtual environment.
You get a diverse cultured group of people, it's a win-win for everybody.
More conversion from candidate leads.
What does that look like in this new virtual world?
Welcome, everyone. It is Thursday, noon Eastern time. You know what that means. It is time for Talent Experience Live. I am coming to you live from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm your host, Devin Foster, and this is your weekly look at hot topics in HR, interviews with leaders in the industry, as well as hot new HR technology, and today we're talking about that. We're talking a little bit about HR technology. It's all about the bot. Don't be confused. It is not all about the base. It is about the bot. And today we are chatting with Stanford Health Care and connecting with candidates. But before we jump into that, I always love to kick off the show, hear where everyone is from. So please hop into the comment section. Let your voice be heard. Let me know where you're tuning in from. I mentioned that I'm joining you from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And while you are there, don't forget to share this out to your network. Sharing is caring. Obviously, HR technology is a huge topic no matter what part of HR you are in, whether it be the talent acquisition space, talent management. And today we're talking about bot, which has been taking the HR world by storm. So definitely feel free to share this out to your network. If you're not able to catch the full episode, perhaps you have to make some lunch at some point today because it is noon Eastern time. Maybe take the dog out. Maybe it's your opportunity to step away from your computer. Don't worry. You can always catch the full recap on YouTube as well as on our Phenom blog. It's phenom.com/blog. We make it readable so that you can perhaps catch up in a quiet place or also watch a few little snippets if you don't have all of the time in the world, because I know everyone's lives are very busy. But it looks like a couple people are hopping in the comment section. I can see that Laura is joining us from Miami. Welcome. Dan from Philadelphia, welcome as well. And today, Phenom made some news. We announced Phenom Mentoring, and that is going to be the topic of today's icebreaker. I would love to hear what exactly or who exactly your mentor was. Could be personal, could be professional. And while you do that in the comment section, we have a nice little clip that Shane, who is pulling the levers on the back end of this show, helped produce, all about mentoring. So we'll air the clip now. Mentors are such a crucial part in people's career. I hopped into the comments section and said that Jason DeLuca is my mentor. That is from years back when I worked at a third-party logistics company. I also just learned that I am never going to try and comment and host the stream at the same time because that is a little bit too stressful for me today. So feel free to let me know who is your mentor, and don't forget to tag them. I'm sure that they would love to hear it. We're Thursday, they may be feeling down, can't wait for Friday. It's a great way to lift someone up and get them excited for the weekend. Now that we've talked about mentoring and everything else, we are going to talk about today's hot topic, which is that it is all about the bot and how Stanford Healthcare connects with candidates. I oftentimes wonder how some of the most respected brands are delivering meaningful personalization consistently as well as at scale. And obviously, another HR hot topic is that's through artificial intelligence and automation. They both play a major role. But another aspect of that is oftentimes associated with both AI and automation is the chatbot. Now, you may be asking, that's only for when an Amazon order doesn't show up on time, or perhaps when my DoorDash delivery forgot my milkshake along with my order. That couldn't be more wrong. It can also help recruiters save countless hours and really precious time throughout the recruitment process and really keep them engaged, right? Throughout, recruiters' jobs are all about having meaningful conversations. So perhaps answering questions as to how late is the office open, or what are your COVID policies and things like that, where they can be automated, can help recruiters really save time and create some of those meaningful moments for candidates as they move down the journey. But with that being said, please join me in welcoming our guest today, Michelle Hart, who is lead talent strategist of talent management at Stanford Healthcare, which is also a U.S. News and World Report Best Hospital. So congratulations on that, and please join me in welcoming Michelle. Hey, Michelle, how are you?
Hi, Devin.
Thank you for joining me on the show today. I really appreciate it. How's everything been? I see you're still working from your home office. Yep. Everything okay? Are you venturing back into the workplace soon, or staying from home?
I work remotely on a regular basis, but I do go to California. I used to go quarterly, and we actually are getting close, just weeks away from where there might be a flight involved going back out. So I'm very excited about that opportunity. So
I was just on a plane a couple weeks ago, and it's like I never flew before in my life. I got to the airport 6 hours early. Yes. I lost my headphones. It was a disaster. I didn't eat enough, so I had to spend thousands of dollars on food, but that's not today's topic, of course. Today we are talking about Chatbot and how it is helping Stanford Health. But before we jump into that, I have to ask you, is there a mentor or someone that you'd like to shout out that really helped you progress within your career?
Absolutely. My mentor is Christy Griffin, and she's currently a VP at Ross Stores. We actually, we've known each other for years, but she's the one who she's encouraged me, and she pushes me constantly outside of my box. So anytime that I'm like, oh, I'm not sure about this, and we talk through things, and she's been great.
That's awesome. It's great that you still have that relationship, and she's still able to help you get outside your comfort zone a little bit. Another question that I always love to ask everyone who joins the show is, how did you end up getting into talent acquisition and talent management? Is it something that you grew up wanting to do, be in HR and work as an HR professional?
Well, I actually went to school to be a pharmacist. Okay. And I started off in that, and about my third year, and I was taking organic chemistry, and I began to see all of the different classes I was going to take, and I did an internship, and I realized that maybe this isn't where I needed to be, wanted to be, my passion wasn't there. I decided to step away from that, and then the university was like, well, you need to choose something. You've been here long enough. You're going to have to make a choice. And so I actually went to one of those night things where they're like, here's all of our majors that you can choose from for those of you who don't know what you want to do yet. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up going into sociology, and my parents were like, what are you going to do with a degree in sociology? It's not a teacher. It's not a lawyer. It's not a doctor. What are you going to do? So it's very interesting how sociology just kind of naturally is that's recruiting. You're understanding where people are and how they interact with others. And so to me, it was natural once I got into recruiting. So I decided HR was kind of the way I wanted to go. I had an opportunity to actually be a generalist and look at a variety of things, and realized recruiting really was the area that I enjoyed the most. So started off in an agency, and in Seattle, loved it. Great group of people. We're all still really connected, and that was over 20 years ago. So we're still communicate with each other and keep up with each other's families. So it was really a unique experience. And then I've grown to where I am now.
That's awesome. I come with a background in agency as well as a little bit of recruiting. And it's funny, you kind of just eventually fall into it, right? That's what happens. Your career takes a different path. I unfortunately only went to those nighttime university events for the free food, but I'm glad to see that people can find career advancement and decisions there. It's there for a purpose, not just to help feed broke college kids. But anyway, I, of course, hopped on to Stanford's career site. And the first thing I noticed, aside from the beautiful branding and imagery that you have all across the site, is the chatbot. And I know it jumped out. It had a little ping. It caught my attention. Have you seen that same success with candidates since it's been launched?
Yes, we actually have. I wasn't quite sure when we first launched it what the chatbot would actually be able to bring to us. So we started almost a year ago with Phenom. July 28th of 2020 was our launch date. And we didn't, at the time, our ATS system did not integrate. We had an older ATS system. And so I'm like, how is this really going to work for us? What is it going to bring? And the first thing that it actually brought for us was those frequently asked questions. And for me, what I decided to do was to get a team together of recruiters, and we went through what we thought would be the most frequently asked questions on the site. And we came up with answers, tried to put a little bit of the Stanford flair to some of those answers, and provide links out to people. But what it began to show us is some of those FAQs were not necessarily the same as what our candidates were wanting. And so we were able to tweak those. And so that was really helpful. And we were able to have something to start with before we implemented our new ATS system. And so with that, we were able to see that people ask questions about benefits. They asked questions about our the types of positions we have. We don't necessarily have per diem roles that other hospitals do. We call them relief roles. So we were able to describe what that meant. And people were like, do you have part-time? Do you have, how many hours does that work? And what does 0.9 mean? And different things. So we will answer those questions, which was really helpful as we got ready to launch our new ATS system.
It's interesting that you mentioned you tried to come up with a plan for FAQs beforehand. And when I talk to HR professionals all the time and I ask them about their application process, I oftentimes ask, when's the last time you went through your process, right? What does that look like and how has it changed? And I think it's the same sort of approach here where you took that mentality of, if I was a candidate today, and I hate to break it to you, you're not a candidate, right? So you don't know all the questions. You can get 90, 95% of them right, but the ability to go back and adjust them on a regular basis has to be crucial there. Now I have to ask you, while you were coming up with this chatbot plan and everything along those lines, was there an example of maybe a poor chatbot experience that you had and you were like, as long as we don't have that, we should be okay? Is that something that was in the back of your head? You don't have to give away a name.
Yes,
I'm not going to put anybody on blast.
No, it is something that that we thought about. We didn't want to be, yes, we have this. No, we don't. It was, we wanted to give it a nice feel. And so one thing that I did was I also am an adjunct professor. And so I kind of used my class at the time as our little audience. And I would pull up examples of other businesses out there, variety of things, and we would utilize their chatbot and get input of, yes, this works. No, we don't like that. We really like this site. Look at the interaction that we're getting, the responses. And so that was great. Then I would take that back to our chatbot team and we would look at those examples and try to build ours in some way, again, based on what our, how an answer would come through from Stanford Healthcare if you were to talk with a recruiter online. So yes, we did. Because there's some good and there are some bad out there.
Absolutely. And then the next thing that I always think of when I think of chatbots, and not just on career sites, but also on consumer sites, is there are things that you probably purchase that you don't necessarily want to speak to a bot. You don't want to have an automated response. I imagine that Tesla, I don't know this for fact, but they probably don't have a bot on their page, right, for some of those frequently asked questions. However, when I order Whole Foods and they're out of some particular item, they have a bot that sends that to me. So my question to you, I promise that there is a connection here, is there a particular role that you see more interaction for the bot versus others, potentially maybe frontline workers or some C-level executives or something along those lines?
Exactly. Our nurses are a great example. We get a lot of responses and actually applies from our nurses through the chatbot. Part of it, I think, is because of the nature of their jobs. They're so busy that they can actually use it from their phone which is really nice. The chatbots on there, and they can review positions by just answering a couple questions real quick. They can upload their resume. So that's really helpful. If they happen to get disconnected, they can come back, or we have it where we can follow back up with them. But it does allow them that quick and easy ability to apply. So I do see the nursing definitely has been the biggest, and it feeds up. So like if you are an oncology nurse, for example, and you go to our chatbot and you put in there that you are a nurse, and then it will say, well, what type? And you type in oncology nurse, and it pulls up, and you click on it, and it'll say, here's 18 jobs, and you can quickly go through those, maybe 18, and yep, this is the one, and you go ahead and apply. The process is so simple. We do see it for our frontline workers, as you said, too, in our hospitality space. We do see that. We see it in our lab, but nursing by far has been the greatest, I would say the greatest position category that uses it.
That makes sense. And I know nursing hours can be all across, the 24-hour day. There could be somebody working a night shift. So it makes sense that they interact with it as well. The other thing that I wanted to call out was you mentioned that if they get disconnected or perhaps have to hop off, and immediately what I think of is someone who is frustrated at work. They step into like a little side room. They start an application because they've just had it. All of a sudden somebody walks in, they have to close out real quick. To have that process saved and make sure that they don't have to start from zero again must be crucial for them to finish the job application. And one aspect of that is how important is it, you talked about the ATS and integrations before, how important is it for your chatbot to be connected to your CRM and not be a different system where if somebody does get disconnected, you may not be able to access their information until you jump back into it? Absolutely.
So we did have that at the beginning. We didn't have that. We had that missing piece because of the system that we had. When we went live with our new system in January, huge difference. We have that ability now to see the positions they were interested in. So that's huge right there. We can absolutely see, these were the ones they were interested in. We can now create an email campaign, and we can follow up with those individuals. We can do it as a group. If we narrow it down to the people who were just interested in these roles or in this particular category, we can do the email campaign. We can do the text campaign if we so choose to do it that way. But it allows us to not miss out on candidates. We get those partial applies, if you will, or leads.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that brings up my next question is, with those partial applies or leads, do you have a specific strategy that you set up to talk to them directly? Personalization is key. It's in every aspect of our life now. Is there maybe a cute or creative message that you have that says, hey, looks like you didn't finish, or something along those lines to help nudge candidates across the finish line?
Yeah, the subject line we usually use is let's stay connected. And so it's like, we must have gotten disconnected somewhere along the way. So let's stay connected here, because sometimes people are like you said, they go off and they're in that room and they're applying. Well, maybe their day gets better and they're like, I don't really want to. But we're saying, hey, let's stay connected. This time may not be right, but let's look at the future. Here's the job you were interested in. And so we'll use that piece of it. The other thing that we're able to do, because we can see the jobs that they were interested in, we can be specifically targeting back to them in the future, which is really nice. But then we can also, go ahead and click that, include that link to that specific job. So if it's not a nursing job, for example, because we'll have many oncology nursing jobs, but say it's a finance revenue cycle manager position, we can take that specific role, attach it back into that email, and send it directly to them. We're also able to, through the chatbot, through the FAQ page, we can see some of the exam or the questions that are being asked from people. And because their emails or their names are attached in there, we can follow up with those individuals directly. If we feel like there's something really important that they're asking that they didn't get, we want to make sure that candidate experience, we just take it to that next level, and we can respond directly to them saying, hey, I see you had an issue, or you couldn't get through, you couldn't get your answer, and here we're going to be able to help you with that.
I do want to call out a couple comments in the chat section, if you will. Jen chimes in and says, "Agree. Chatbots that don't really answer the question are completely impersonal and not nearly as helpful as the ones that are." So we all, I think, agree on that point. We may have some specific examples in our mind, but we're not going to use them. Jonathan Dale chimes in and says, "Many candidates don't even realize they did not complete the application,"
Exactly.
which is huge. And then John Ryle chimes in and says that personalization to future roles is so crucial. And I think that's something that we're always talking about, where people are trying to advance their career. They're trying to look for that next step. Sometimes they may apply. This happened to me all the time when I was a recruiter. People apply for jobs that they're not quite qualified for yet, right? I may apply for VP of marketing. Michelle, I'm gonna let you in on a secret. I'm not getting that job today, but based on my background and some of that information, it could be good to get one of those campaigns as well. It sounded like you were really honed in on some of the metrics around this. You talked about following up with specific job descriptions and things like that. What kind of metrics were you able to garner from the bot, and also those follow-up campaigns, if you have them?
Yeah. So what was really interesting is some of our leaders were asking, like, okay, so we have this bot, really, what is it going to do for us? Like, yes, it can answer questions, and yeah, people can apply if they want, but really, what is it going to do? So when I started talking to some of our leaders about it, and I told them, since we've launched, we had over 35,000 unique visitors, but I think the biggest number is that we actually have had 250,000 interactions through the bot. That's a lot, considering that we haven't had it a year yet. You know, it's just, to me, that, and I think that was surprising to them. Like, there's that much interaction that takes place on our career site. And for many of them, that's the only interaction they have. They don't necessarily click on anything else. They're like, oh, this is easy. I can apply right through here. So with that, we've had that 35,000 unique visitors, and we've also then had over 11,000 candidate leads just through the chatbot and 12,000 apply clicks. Now, to get an idea with that 12,000 apply clicks, that is only from January 3rd, when we went live with our ATS, our new ATS system. So the interaction is there. People are utilizing it. And so I think our leaders were really, they were, I think, truly blown away by the fact that that many people interact and get a lot of their responses. So that's why it's even more important that our responses are relevant in meeting the candidate's needs.
Yeah, and you said that I think 250,000 interactions. Was that right? And
yes.
Immediately, what I think is back to my days when I was a recruiter. I felt like I talked to 1 million people today, right? And then you find out that 250,000 interactions. That's time that potentially could be answering some of those simple FAQ questions, right? Exactly. Where a recruiter is crafting up an email to answer questions, or they're on the phone, and these things can just be automated and help them get back to their day, to creating that. The human aspect of human resources, right? To build those personal relationships. It sounds like you've dug very deep into bot metrics. I have to ask you, do you look at bot metrics more than overall metrics, like job board spend and stuff like that? How much of your time are you spending looking at these numbers?
I actually do. I look at our analytics every morning. Every morning I look at it. And part of the reason why I do that is because our chat bot, along with our net promoter score and how is our website, those two pieces provide me insight into how the website is doing and any challenges that somebody may be having with our site. So when something might get disconnected, people will let me know. That is like their way to communicate with us. Like, hey, I tried to upload this and it wasn't working. Or, hey, I clicked on this link and it's broken. It won't take me where I thought it was going to take me to. And so I go on there every morning, and instead of looking at the 5 scores, I look at the 1 score. What is the challenge? And if I begin to see a pattern, and I begin to see a pattern then in our FAQs on the chatbot side, I look at those and we begin to implement what needs to change. So we have been able to see when we implemented our ATS, I knew our net promoter score was going to go down. because whenever you implement something new, that was going to happen. So now I get excited as I see it tick back up again, because I'm like, yay, things are working the way they should be. And I can take the impact that, and so I appreciate people's responses into and answers that they're giving us through both of those channels, because it does help us create a better, more useful site for the candidates. I know for our new grad nurses, we were getting a lot of questions in our chatbot about how to apply and when will I find out, if I got accepted, just a ton of questions around new grad nursing. And we thought we had answered quite a few of them through different channels that we were doing, but we realized there was such a need that we're actually creating a more robust landing page on our career site with videos and links and more details just for our new grad nursing. And that came from our chatbot, letting us know that these were the questions that were being asked. And so we realized there needs to be an extra layer in there.
That's awesome. I love that you start your day off and immediately started off with negative reviews. It's like, that's motivation for the day. I need to go out and get better. But I apologize. I love sports analogies, so I'm going to have to use one here.
I love sports.
It's like a team reviewing their game tape from a previous week or their last game they played. They'll probably talk about some of the things that they did well, but overall, they're going to look at the things that they did poorly and try and improve upon that. And I think that's so important, because it's easy to pat yourself on the back and say, hey, I did a great job here, but not here, and we're still getting by, versus saying, how do we bump those scores up and really affect our Net Promoter Score and make it better? So that's awesome. It reminds me of when I hop on the scale every single morning and I see a number that I don't like, and I'm like, that's it, I got to go to the gym, right? These things happen. So you've shared a ton of great information. I have to ask you, what is your favorite little nugget of information that you may have found, or a piece that you love to brag to some of your colleagues about?
Oh, goodness. That little nugget of information. I think by using the chatbot, like I just said, it helps us tweak things. But because we have the chatbot, we can immediately go in and make changes, which I love. Because if we didn't have that, and if we didn't have the ability to see those changes, for example, one of the things when we launched our new career, or not our career site, our ATS system, there was a disconnect. There was a disconnect in communication. So they were getting a message that said, please log in to your candidate page. There was no candidate login page. So that's not very helpful. Yeah. And so again, by having that communication through the chatbot and people saying, there is no page, I cannot log in. There is no candidate login page. Where do I go? Am I missing something? I mean, daily I was getting this and I was like, oh my gosh, how can we fix this? So because of that, I was able to quickly create a candidate login page on the career site. If I didn't have that little bit of insight because of the chatbot, I would have never known that there was this piece missing and the candidates couldn't log back in to check their application. It was a simple fix. It took just a matter of minutes to do. But if I didn't have the chatbot, I wouldn't have known. Yeah, I never would have known. And people would have been frustrated and probably just threw their hands up and were like, yeah, we're not going to apply there. They don't know what they're doing. So
I can't access it.
Yeah. Or there would have been all those calls to HR.
Yeah.
All of those calls, all of the emails to HR, because with the chatbot and the FAQs, we went from having roughly, I would say probably about 50 different tickets in our queue every week, sometimes more, sometimes less, but I would say probably around that average, where HR is getting those calls and then they have to disseminate them to either benefits or to the recruiters. And typically it falls on the recruiter, and then the recruiter has to try to find who, may be able to answer it. So now we're down to like maybe 1 to 3 calls a week.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So that's
absolutely
time
awesome.
that everybody gets back, the recruiters as well as other departments within HR.
Absolutely. I get more time. You get less phone calls on issues on your career site than I get spam calls about the previous owner of my phone number, I can tell you. Karen, if you're on the line, your 2001 Subaru is no longer insured. But that's neither here nor there. So we talked about the chatbot, and oftentimes when I think people just in general think of chatbot, they think of it on the homepage of the career site, right? Where you search for jobs and things like that. But oftentimes, people don't come into their job search on career sites unless they have that ideal company that they've wanted to work for forever. They're going to find it through job boards, through LinkedIn, through all sorts of promotion. The chatbot follows you to your job description page. So I have to ask you, how much time went into putting together the job description page, making sure that there was still engagement conversation there, and then also having that application avenue of the chatbot being there? Was that something that took a lot of time and effort and something you put a lot of thought behind?
We put some thought behind it, but the effort was very easy to do. That's what I love. I love about Phenom and the career site component. It's very straightforward and easy to utilize. But I like the fact that the chatbot follows you throughout the process, and especially if you're on that job description page and you're looking at the different sections and you're like, oh, I do have a question about that. I wonder, you can click on it and see if there's an answer for you or a link that will take you. So that was one thing that I learned actually early on with the chatbot. I didn't know that you could put links in there. I'm like, oh, well, that makes it, the chatbot answer doesn't have to be a paragraph then. It can be short, sweet, concise, which is what most people want, because if they're accessing it from their phone, they don't want something that's going to be a paragraph or too long trying to explain to them something. So just by having that little bit, I really do like that it follows you. So like you said, as you're coming in through a different channel to that job description page, landing page there. But then I also like it because it remembers you. So it will pick back up from the conversations you had previously. So you can see what the interaction you've had with it. So I do like that.
Nobody likes to be forgotten, whether it's by a human at a child's birthday party that you've met 1,000 times before. That happened to me this weekend, or by technology, right? You've given your information, you've started the process, and you don't want to start back at point zero all over again. And also, I think it's huge that having that chatbot on the job description page, if somebody does have an FAQ, they don't have to navigate away from that application process. Right? It's within the example, because that's where we've seen a ton of drop off. I know where people are bouncing from tab to tab to tab. I have 70 tabs open right now on my Chromebook. I can't even imagine trying to go back and finding that. So no, that's all awesome. Now I have to ask you, we've covered a lot, but what's next? What are you most excited for in the future state of Stanford Health?
We are excited about looking at adding the scheduling module. That is something that I have been working with our our account manager and customer success manager, both Patrick and Gina, on this. We want to add that so we can save the recruiters even more time, and our hiring managers, and having that strong candidate experience. I know that I use a little link as I'm communicating with people, like, hey, if you want to schedule time, you can go right here. And they're like, oh my gosh, this saved me so much time, the back and forth of emails and what time zone are you in? And, all of those things. So adding that scheduling module is really what I'm excited about, because I can just see that it will free up some time. Because we've noticed, as we've talked with several of our leaders in different departments, that's the bottleneck, really. They're able to, review the resumes and decide who they want to interview. But it's just that next step of, my job is having me do all of this, and I know I need to fill the position, and the recruiters are busy with other recs, and they know, oh, well, this one's, they've already decided who the different people they want to interview, but that is the missing piece. That bottleneck that happens. So we're really looking forward to getting that piece hopefully solidified and be able to bring on board to our suite of products.
Absolutely. And I think this is something that I think about on my team on a regular basis. Working from home, all of these meetings are on our calendars now, where we used to just be able to spin around and say, hey, can you get a moment to check this out? Or can we talk through this? Same thing happens in the recruitment world, I'm sure. And now I open up Google Calendar, and it's a rainbow of different events for different people to try and find just 15 minutes is a challenge. So automating that and saving time versus having that phone tag back and forth or email chain back and forth, where especially when you're working with candidates who may be employed at this exact moment in time. You email them earlier in the day and say, I have these time slots open. By the time they respond, you've already filled them. Now it's a whole challenge.
That happens to me quite a bit. I'm like, oh, I'll give you all the time frames that are available. And it seems like everybody chooses the same 30 minutes. And I'm like, well, whoever comes in first gets that slot. Now I got to go back to everybody else. So yeah, that is a challenge. So we're looking forward to that. I do have to say that when the chatbot was getting revised throughout the last year or so, there was an opportunity where you could name your chatbot, and we didn't necessarily name it externally, but we named it internally, and his name is Stanford. So that is, we call him Stan.
That is a very regal name, and also equally as important, right? With people who now resonate with the brand, right? That may be off-putting for potentially a candidate or somebody who's visiting your site. So I understand why you may not name the external bot, but for the internal bot, people they probably love Stan. Yeah, you know, they're inviting him to happy hour.
Exactly.
Michelle, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for joining today. I cannot wait to hear how scheduling works out. Hopefully we'll get you on the show to talk about how much time is back in your day and how many less cups of coffee you may need to try and figure out some of these nightmares.
My big one right here.
Absolutely. I love it. But no, thank you so much. I hope all is well. If you ever want to, feel free to hop back on the show. We're here every Thursday, and enjoy the rest of your day. All right.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Bye, everyone.
All right, bye. There you have it. That was Michelle Hart talking about everything bot related at Stanford Health and how it is helping save her time in the day as well as her team. Before you go and before we sign off, I always love to thank everyone who joined. But before we do that, I want to first call out last week's episode, which was all around sustainable work-life balance and how, you guessed it, it takes two to make a thing go right. Obviously, we are all balancing so many things in our personal and professional lives, but the ideal work-life balance is something that needs a slew of modern workplace best practices. And we chatted last week with Iona Lupa, Associate Professor at EESEC Business School of France, and Myra Ruiz Castro, Senior Lecturer at the University of Roehampton in the United Kingdom. So with that, let's tune into the clip.
People now realize that work and life balance is not something that is unattainable, right? Or a nice to have, or some sort of privilege, right? I think what people have realized now is that it is feasible, right? For some, of course, it is feasible, and there are alternatives to the way we were working before the pandemic, right? So for many organizations, it was unthinkable to see the majority of the workforce working from home, right? If they didn't see the employee in the office, that meant the employee wasn't being productive or wasn't commitment to her job or his job. But that needed to change, right? And also for people, many people couldn't think of working differently, right? So I have to go to the office 9 to 5 or 9 to 9 p.m. I have to work on weekends, etc., was also taken for granted. And now people actually realize that there is other ways of living, right? That feel a little bit more, more balanced, right? But also more satisfying.
That's an awesome episode. Definitely check out the recap on phenom.com/blogs, or like I mentioned, you can watch the full episode on YouTube as well. Balancing work-life balance also sounds like something that you could perhaps talk to a mentor about. And I don't know if I mentioned it already, but Phenom announced Phenom Mentoring today, and we do have a nice clip to air with that. So if we could air the promotion for Phenom Mentoring. definitely check out the blog and press release related to Phenom Mentoring. Special shout out to Jason DeLuca, my mentor, and also a shout out to everyone who hopped into the comment section today. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, John. Thank you, Tom. Thank you. There's two more here. Laura as well as Dan. Thank you all for joining us today. Tune in next week. I'll let you in on a little secret. We're celebrating the year anniversary of Talent Experience Live. As you can see, I haven't gotten a haircut once during that time period, so we're going to celebrate that as well. And I hope everyone has a great rest of their day and hopefully a wonderful weekend as well. Thanks again for tuning in.